Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Chai Talk with Wajahat Lee for the Left Hook Substack, where I invite a subject matter expert who is far smarter than me to break down one big question in 30 minutes or less. And today I have my friend Zaki Berzinji. Zaki Berzinji is the co-founder of Americans for Kashmir, the only Kashmiri American advocacy organization in Washington, D.C. He's also a former White House liaison to Muslim Americans during the Obama administration. And I have him here. Well, y'all are hearing about what's happening between India and Pakistan, right? Two nuclear powered countries, tension escalating. But oftentimes, what's missing is the other party, Kashmir. Yes, Kashmir, occupied Kashmir. And I have him here to talk about why India's occupation of Kashmir is a global laboratory for fascism. And specifically, I want to talk about what's happened in Kashmir, that terrorist attack where 26 tourists were killed. As of now, this recording Friday, we still don't know who did it. But India is blaming Pakistan. There's been escalation. India is threatening to suspend the water treaty that was put in place since 1960. That water treaty is critical to Pakistan for its crops, for food. Pakistan has declared an act of war. The rest of the world is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Two nuclear powered countries who've battled three wars and the Kargil incident of 1999 going head to head. This is terrible for international security and for trade. But what gets missed is Kashmir, right? What gets missed is Kashmir. Kashmir is the lightning rod, right? The chess piece, as you know, Zaki, that both countries have used and abused for their own ambitions. Yet Kashmir has been under occupation since 1947. And under this government of Modi, which I'm comfortable saying is a Hindu fascist government, I think you will be as well. The repression of Kashmiris, especially in the past 5-6 years, is even worse than what's been happening since 1947. It is, I was reading, the most securitized place on earth. And what's the crackdown on Kashmiri advocacy, journalists, free speech, is basically a precursor to what we're seeing in America. And it has been what we've heard, and why I brought you here today, it's been copied by fascists across the globe. So I've given you a lot. I've tried to set the table in 2 minutes or less for people who don't know, but I give the chai to you, Zaki. Spill the tea as to why people need to care in America about what's happening in Kashmir right now.
Yeah, first off, as you know, we Kashmiris have our own tea, noon
Yes,
chai.
all right, yes. Kashmiri tea, it's good, it's good. We can do the tea wars later, but I enjoy the Kashmiri tea. Prefer Pakistani tea. I enjoy the Kashmiri tea.
Well, here's the thing. Just very quickly on the chai note, Kashmiri chai, noon chai, as you know, it's known for being pink. But the real Kashmiris, when they drink it with salt. It's salty,
Mm.
which kind of is a good indication of how we feel as people, as Kashmiris, constant state of saltiness. So anyway, that's a little cultural trivia for you at the start of it. Look, when it comes to, let's start like with what's happening right now, just this week in Kashmir. Like you said, there's still so little that we know and a whole lot that we don't know. Like we know, for example, that 26 people were massacred in Pahalgam, which is a beautiful place in Kashmir. For people who like Bollywood movies, there's a lot of times when you see like a woman and a man running towards each other in a massive green, beautiful field. That's often shot in Pahalgam, just to give you some context. So we know people were massacred, and it's a horrifying scene of violence. Horrifying. We also know that like at least one of the people that was killed was a Kashmiri Muslim tour guide who
Mm.
himself rushed out to defend the tourists and saved lives because he did that, which is not a fact that's getting talked about a lot on the Indian side, at
No, it's
least.
the first time I've heard of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly. But there's still a lot that we don't know, which is strange. We don't actually know who was responsible, like you said. The Indian government has made a number of often contradicting claims about, who's been responsible. They've offered very little evidence. As you know, media outlets around the world have not been able to independently verify any of the details. We don't know why such a high profile area was so unprotected. Like you just said, Kashmir is literally the most militarized place in the world. You can't walk like more than a few yards without bumping into armed forces. So how is such a massive security breach possible? And what responsibility does the Indian government itself have there? So these are a lot of questions that are being asked right now. And, obviously, like you said, we know that none of this uncertainty has stopped the Indian government from going full steam ahead and escalating tensions with Pakistan. Like you mentioned, the suspension of the water treaty, and they're expelling Pakistani nationals. But, like you said, I want to stop and caution against only framing this conflict as a binary India versus Pakistan issue. Because the truth is, the people that are most affected themselves are the people of Kashmir themselves. And too often, their voices, in our experience, are completely missing from the conversation. So, in the wake of what's happened, what has India done? We've already seen Modi-aligned media pundits, like national media pundits, calling on air for a final solution against Kashmiris for a Kashmiri problem. We've seen many BJP politicians all around India call for outright mob violence against Kashmiris, not just in Kashmir, but across India and even across the world. There's a call to arms against Kashmiris happening. There's one example, one BJP politician very far away from Kashmir, he tweeted out an address for a house, and he said, "I heard that two Kashmiris were living in there." And he attached a photo of what he said was like a terrorist communication device. Turns
Like
out
global doxing.
exactly, but turns out those two guys weren't even Kashmiri, and the device was a Wi-Fi router.
Wow.
But the mob had already been activated. So, the Modi government, time and time again, they use this excuse of national security to just completely decimate human and democratic rights.
It sounds like Israel.
Look, there's a lot to be learned. Like you said, a lot of folks say that Kashmir has been a laboratory for government-led attacks on human democratic rights. And by the way, this has been going on for decades in Kashmir. But it is during Modi's time as prime minister that he's really escalated things. Like, he gleefully tests out the latest repression techniques on Kashmir first before exporting it out. We're like the early adopters of democratic repression. Just a few things that have been pioneered in Kashmir. Under Modi, Kashmir had the longest and widest internet blackout ever, which completely decimated Kashmir's economy, and it made it impossible for us here in the U.S. to reach our family members. Modi jailed dozens of elected Kashmiri officials. He jailed the imam of the biggest masjid in Kashmir. He uses illegal laws like the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act and the Public Safety Act, which allows the government to detain Kashmiris for up to 2 years without a trial or charge. Again, sounds familiar, right? And you can just tell, this is the thing that Kashmiris have been facing. You can tell by the people that they target, that the people that the Indian government targets in Kashmir, this entire layer of civil society, the whole part of civil society that ensures at least some level of stability and leadership, that's what he's methodically eliminating. So it's a very clear intention of creating a vacuum for chaos. If you're removing the religious leaders, the elected officials, the journalists, you're jailing them. What's left to have stability in society? You're intentionally creating an unstable society. And all of those tactics that we've talked about, he's gone on to now use them against Indian farmers protesting on the other side of India, political challengers, Christian groups, Sikh groups, all across India. He's used the same tactics now. Basically, anyone that dares defy his nationalist agenda, he's now using anti-democratic tactics that have first experimented on. He experimented on in Kashmir.
It sounds very Trumpian.
Exactly, 100%. And
can you talk about that? Because people forget, right? Itmar Ben-Gvir. We're recording this on a Friday. Hopefully, I'll have this out either today or over the weekend. But Itmar Ben-Gvir, who is the far-right extremist national security minister of Israel. Israeli journalists have described him to me as, imagine if a KKK leader was the national security minister of America. That's how extreme, hateful, and racist Itmar Ben-Gvir is. Open, shameless, naked, right? That's how extreme the Netanyahu government is. He was visiting Yale, but before Netanyahu, Itmar Ben-Gvir came and visited America, Modi came and visited America and Donald Trump. And also Modi's government is very close to Netanyahu's government. Yeah. So, Zaki, people don't connect the dots, but connect the dots for us. Why would Modi be so enamored by Bibi and also by not just Trump, but also Orban and other budding fascists in Europe?
Look, I mean, it's like we always say, game recognized game. If people see kindred spirits in the ways that they are jointly repressing democratic rights, they tend to bond with each other. You mentioned Modi coming to the U.S. during this term. But also think back to the first time Modi came in the first Trump administration, when there was the massive rally, the Howdy Modi rally,
Oh
that
yeah.
was like just an insane spectacle. And you know,
Was it Madison Square Garden that he sold
no, it
out?
was in Texas. It was in
Oh yeah.
Texas. There was a huge arena just full of people, and like Modi loves these crowds. He likes whipping them into a frenzy. Donald Trump clearly loves crowds and whipping them into a frenzy, and so there's kindred spirits there. And part of what's going on right now, even just this week, is, as you probably saw, like JD Vance was in India when this attack happened.
Mm.
Um, India and the US are right in the midst of renegotiating a new trade deal. And Modi's repressive actions that he's now taking with a national security justification is happening within this context. And so it's impossible to separate the relationship between the US and India, and also the US and Israel, from the current actions that are happening right now under Modi, because, uh, this idea of invoking national security issues as a reason to suspend democratic and human rights is a playbook that, if your friend allows you to use that playbook, then your friend is also going to use that playbook. And there's an understanding that, hey, we're going to all use the same playbook. We're
That's
all
right.
going to invoke security issues. We're all going to have each other's back on this. And it allows for an environment where we can have trade deals, we can become closer partners, and we're not going to call each other out on our extremely repressive tactics that we're using against entire populations.
And if people think that Zucky is being hyperbolic and exaggerating, I give you Bolsonaro of Brazil. Bolsonaro used Donald Trump's tactic, right, of saying that the election was stolen, right, and he tried to incite an insurrection, and he said it was like deep state, but he lost, right? He's being held accountable. It's a tit for tat, and also it kind of shows you the importance of America's role, right? We oftentimes say if America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold. And if America at least performs, despite our many sins, as being, the upholder of democracy and the rule of law, at least it inspires other nations to at least attempt to, essentially, commit themselves to freedom and accountability. But when America says, it's all good, quid pro quo, what incentive is there for Modi or Bibi to pretty much go to the national stage and perform accountability and rule of law and human rights?
Yeah, I mean, look, under Biden, I wouldn't say that Biden had anywhere close to a good policy on India and Kashmir. He was far too, I think, accepting and willing to turn a blind eye. But at least under the Biden administration, there was some attempt to rein Modi in. The State Department issued religious freedom reports that documented gross violations of religious freedom, not just in Kashmir, but across India. There was this some semblance of trying to reel them back. All of that is gone now under Trump. And more than that, we talked about Kashmir is the laboratory for anti-democratic actions. It's expanded into India, but it's also expanded beyond the borders of India. India is one of the largest purveyors of transnational repression in the world, in the sense that if you are speaking out against the government in India, anywhere in the world, India is going to try to find a way to get to you. In the US, for example, there's plenty of Kashmiri Americans who spend almost their entire lives in the US. They speak out against the Indian government here in the US, and all of a sudden, their families back in Kashmir get harassed and intimidated by Indian
Mm.
forces. There's dossiers of Kashmiri American activists being passed around in Kashmir because that's what the Indian government does. They try to intimidate speech, not even within their borders, but across the world. And one thing that we're concerned about is to what degree Trump is going to allow for the Indian government to stretch its long arm of transnational repression even into the US. A good example is in California. You might have heard about this, but there was a bill that is being worked on right now that it's such a small bill, but it's like training police officers to identify instances of transnational repression. That's what it is. It's like a pro cop bill in some ways. It's like more training for cops so they can identify transnational repression. The bill does not mention India. It doesn't mention anything about India whatsoever. But the Indian lobby has gone so hard to try to kill this bill because they know that they are the ones that are purveyors of transnational repression. And if this
They're
comes up,
telling them on. They're telling on themselves.
exactly, it's like, why are you guys here? If you don't do this, then why do you care if we, you know, point at this. And so what's worrisome is if this comes up on a federal level, if there are more increased instances of Indian government repercussions against American activists, and it goes unchecked, then all of a sudden the floodgates are open. Who knows what this government is going to do?
Well, we
Because
know we know what they're going to do because we're already seeing it, right? It's quid pro quo. So we're seeing,
definitely,
pro-Palestinian activists being detained. We're seeing
definitely,
pro-Palestinian activists literally being detained for thought crimes, for writing an op-ed, being kidnapped in broad daylight by masked ICE agents. We're seeing pro-Palestinian activists without any criminal charges whatsoever go to become citizens, and instead at the citizenship test get arrested and being detained. And we're seeing legal immigrants who are brown skinned with tattoos literally being deported to their death. And now we're
yes,
seeing Donald Trump quid pro quo saying, hey, we gave El Salvador $6 million and we gave Bukele, who's our partner, to house all these immigrants who, by the way, 90%, according to Bloomberg, have zero criminal charges, right?
yeah,
Uh, hey, we're open to doing this to U.S. citizens,
yeah,
right? So it's
yeah,
already happening, right? Quid
yeah.
pro quo. Hey, Israel, we'll help you. Sure. Hey, Bukele, get rid of this brown problem. So if Modi comes in and says, hey, quid pro quo, I'll give you a deal. Just let me get some of these Kashmiris and these anti-Indian students.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't he say yes?
And they've already been doing this. The Indian lobby in DC, um, anytime there is like new advocacy being done on behalf of Kashmiris or even other minority groups within India, the Indian government will immediately go to every member of Congress, go to the administration and say, hey, these people that are trying to do advocacy, they're all like secret Pakistani agents. And it's
They're
insulting to
all Taliban. They're all ISIS. They're all Al Qaeda.
yeah, and it's actually insulting to me because I don't want Pakistan to get the credit for the advocacy that I do. That's like if I like when I tell a joke to you and then you tweet it and get all the credit for it. It's the same
But it
thing.
happens often. Happens often.
I think the fear is that India's going to do that. They're going to say that look, we know that Trump, you support us in our mission to root out terrorism, Islamic terrorism. We have reason to believe that all these individuals within the U.S. are secret Pakistani agents, similar to how you're hearing about Hamas-aligned people within the U.S. It becomes a very vague, nebulous definition, but it's enough to get people in trouble, to get them
Mm.
seized off the streets without due process. And then I will tell you that to be deported, if you are somebody who is on the Indian government's radar and you will happen to be an Indian citizen and you get deported to India, you are in for a terrible time. Your life is going to be hell. If you're Kashmiri and you get deported to India and India is asking for you to come to India, you are going to have a terrible time. You will most likely be disappeared. Your family's not going to be able to know where you are. Your lawyer is not going to be able to reach you because that's exactly what's happened time and time again. So this is a very real issue and a very real fear that a lot of us have. And what it does is it has a chilling effect. You're
Yeah.
less likely to speak out against it because of the repercussions that are bound to come. I'll tell you, like when I co-founded this Americans for Kashmir organization, I'm probably one of the only ones on the team that's willing to be public in my advocacy because for me, my immediate family is here in the U.S. So the repercussions are slightly less risky for me than they are for others. But for others, it's like, no, we literally, our families are going to get screwed over
And
if we
you
speak
know,
here.
I know your grandfather. Your grandfather was literally imprisoned.
Yeah, exactly. My grandfather was a student activist, but leading campus protests. He was leading campus protests in Kashmir in the 60s. He was jailed, imprisoned by the Indian government days before he was supposed to marry my grandmother. He was tortured while he was in prison. He left Kashmir as soon as he could, moved to the U.S. and has never gone back, and that's stayed with him for decades and decades. And he was just doing what a lot of people are doing right now, which is protesting on campuses against oppression, against gross violations of human rights.
People. I've been telling Indians, right, and specifically Indian Muslims for many years, who used to knock me, the Indian-Pakistan rivalry, right? And I said, listen, Modi, he's not just going to go after the extremists, right? They're going to go after Indian Muslims. They're like, no, I think we'll be okay. We're established. We have roots. All right. So Modi goes after Muslims. And then I told other folks, other religious minorities, Jain communities, Christians. He's not going to stop. This is Hindu nationalism. And now you see Christians being
Yeah,
like, hey, we have to help our Indian Christians, brothers and sisters.
yeah,
And now he's going after dissidents who happen to be Hindu, right? You saw that in Israel. It just doesn't end with Palestinians. Now they're going after those bad Jews, right? Those un-Jews, as they call them, right? Who are going against Israel and standing up to Netanyahu. The
yeah,
water cannon, folks, was released against Jewish protesters against Netanyahu, right? You saw that in China, crackdown on the Uyghur Muslims, but then also using the crackdown of Uyghur Muslims to perfect the surveillance state, which China is now exporting. So is Israel. So is India. So
yeah.
it's like the reverse Avengers. It's like the dark Avengers. It's like the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants with the rise of fascism. And what's happening in India echoes in America. What happens in America echoes in Israel and India. It's all connected. But
Yeah.
for those people, Zaki, and I hate framing it this way because, well, America, we're deeply self-centered. We believe the world revolves around us. It's a world superpower. They're like, listen, man, I'm dealing with authoritarianism in the United States. We're dealing with Israel and Palestine. We're dealing with the economy. This is an India Pakistan thing. I don't. Why should I care about what's happening in Kashmir?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a side effect of this America first mentality that's taken over us, where suddenly it's become cool to say, I don't care about anything that's happening anywhere else in the world except right here in the US. Um, the truth is, you cannot cut yourself off from the rest of the world. Things that are happening in India and Kashmir have a direct effect on us here in the US. And so you cannot just simply turn it off. Um, and we've already talked about transnational repression as a very clear example of that. Our American rights, my American right to free speech, is being infringed upon by a foreign government. That's something that should upset you. It should upset you as an American. The fact that a foreign government is coming in and trying to suppress the free speech and the rights of their fellow Americans. That's one great example. Another example is a lot of this, the BJP Hindutva movement, which is unabashedly a Hindu nationalist movement,
Yeah.
unabashedly believes in the supremacy of Hinduism. A lot of that rhetoric has seeped here into the U.S. For example, there have been attempts in California, especially, to pass legislation that outlaws casteism, because casteism is a huge issue in the U.S. in the tech industry. Hundreds of people who identify as Dalit from Dalit classes, which is the untouchable class in the Hindu the hierarchy within Hinduism, have been denied jobs because higher caste Indians in tech have denied them jobs, and this is in the U.S. So discrimination is happening in the U.S. But what the Indian lobby, the Indian government lobby, has tried to do is say you can't talk about casteism because talking about casteism is Hindu phobia. They've tried to
Mm.
coin this new phrase of Hindu phobia, and it's really disappointing because there is legitimate hate against people who are South Asian. White supremacists don't care what religion you are. If you're brown, you're on their radar and you are their target.
Yeah,
But
bigots are unsubtle.
exactly, yeah, exactly. So there's this attempt to kind of import these nationalist ideologies into the U.S. and it's affecting private industry, like I said, the tech industry. It's affecting the education system, where a lot of Hindu nationalist lobbyists have gone even school district by school district and saying you need to take out references to casteism in your textbooks. This has
Mm.
happened in Virginia, where they've said we want to take out references to casteism because it's Hindu phobic, even though it's rooted in reality. And like we said, it's to this day, there are other Hindus who are experiencing casteism from other Hindus in the US. And so these are issues that are affecting us right here at home in things as important as the tech industry, which is literally building our future. So those are all reasons why you can't just sort of turn your back on what's happening across the world when it has a direct impact on our lives here.
No, Zaki, I appreciate you joining us and I appreciate you actually talking about this. More and more people should know what's happening in Kashmir, how it relates to both India and Pakistan, how it relates to the rise of fascism, both in India and abroad, how it's all connected. We're hoping cooler heads prevail. because right now it's escalating, folks, and that ain't good for the world. It ain't good for the region, and it is never ever good for Kashmiris who remain occupied and, like so many other people, just want the right to self-determination and freedom. Zaki Barzinji is the former White House liaison to Muslim Americans under the Obama administration. He's the co-founder of Americans for Kashmir, the only Kashmiri American advocacy group in DC. And Zaki, shamelessly promote yourself. I know it's very difficult as a child of immigrants, but promote yourself if you can.
Sure. Well, in my day job, I work at the Aspen Institute. I lead all of our work at the intersection of tech and systemically marginalized communities. I encourage you to check us out at aspendigital.org. Follow me on social media. I don't know what my handle is. LinkedIn.com/ at Zaki Barzunji. I really need to take some tips on my social media presence from people like you. But yeah, I'm around. Hit me
And
up. I
I
I
also
have
want to get.
some. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I also want to give a shout out to. I see Miss Marvel in the background. I
Yeah.
see Groot with a Lego flower. I also see C-3PO and some Ewoks, and I think that's Han Solo holding the hand of who?
Yeah. This is if you can get this, this would be a huge.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought. That's Harrison Ford, Han Solo holding the hand of his father from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Sean Connery. I thought as much, but I was just like, well done, sir. Well done.
Thanks.
No,
Trying to
thank you
compete with
for the
you.
work. And everyone watching at home, please take care of yourself, stay informed, lean into this thing called diversity, equity, and inclusion. You'll learn a lot about the world. And please, oh, please, friends, don't be a fascist. Take care.